Hello, church. My name is Stacy Orr, and I coordinate the women's events here at Heights Church. Did you know that waiting is an action? It's not passive. A person who waits is making an active choice to stay just where they are or to delay an action until a particular time or until something else happens. Waiting is a verb. I was talking to a friend recently who sometimes experiences anxiety in the waiting. You know, those times when we find ourselves in the in-between. We might find ourselves waiting on our next opportunity or trying to determine our next steps. As my friend and I talked, we commiserated on how difficult it can sometimes be to sit and wait for God to show us our next move, especially when we think we already know the overall direction we should be heading. We might know clearly that God has called us to something specific, but we aren't quite there yet. And we find ourselves wondering when it will happen and how we could possibly make it happen sooner. Have you ever thought to yourself, there must be something I can do to speed up the process? After all, it's what God wants for me. Even though waiting is an action, it can often be hard. Maybe today you find yourself in a season of waiting. It might be a short season, or it might be a season that seems to be never ending. In either circumstance, we have the opportunity to find God in the waiting place. In Psalm 62, we see David waiting. While I encourage you to read the entire chapter, I really got stuck on verses 1 and 2, so we are going to stay here for most of the Devo. I love the example David sets before us as he cries out to God from his particular waiting room. Listen to these words. I wait quietly before God, for my victory comes from him. He alone is my rock and salvation, my fortress where I will never be shaken. From these two verses, we see very quickly that waiting has been a common human condition for quite some time. David goes on in this chapter to talk about all the enemies that are surrounding him, the people that are telling lies about him, and then also those who are basically waiting for an opportunity to take him out. Have you ever been there? In a place of waiting where you feel surrounded by your enemies, and all you want to do is fight back and fix the situation, but God has called you to wait? I have found myself saying back to God in these moments, but I can do so much more than wait. What if I did this, or what if I did that? But then he gently reminds me to look at verses 1 and 2 again. It says, I wait quietly before God, for my victory comes from him. You see, he is the way to victory, not my actions. I can shake my fists and say all the things, but sometimes it's in this quiet waiting that he will help me step into the victory that he has already won. Again, you might find yourself today in that time of waiting, and you might also be frustrated by the amount of time it's taking you to get to your next destination. Or you might just be moving along just fine, and your particular waiting room is up the road a bit. But whenever you find yourself in the waiting, I encourage you to seize the opportunity to wait quietly before God. Read Psalm 62 in its entirety. It will help give you the perspective that you need to remember that your time waiting is never wasted. It says this in verses 7 and 8. My victory and honor come from God alone. He is my refuge, a rock where no enemy can reach me. O people, trust in him at all times. Pour your heart out to him, for God is our refuge. Church, it's my prayer today that you find refuge in God as you wait quietly before him. You can do it. Waiting is an action, and our time spent waiting is never wasted. Thanks for joining me today, church. See you next time.